Hello, and welcome to part 2 of this webinar series on the stimulus package. I'm Rodney Fong, President and CEO of the San Francisco Chamber of Commerce, and thank you for watching part 1 of this great series, with many more to come. We're excited to have a conversation with U.S. Senator Dianne Feinstein's office today. The Chamber of Commerce wants to continue to offer resources, information, as we're all in this together to make a better San Francisco. I want to encourage you to follow us on social media, to subscribe to our newsletter, and as we continue to fight for our community, the business community. We're in this together. I now want to pass it off to our Director of Public Policy, Jay Chang. Take it away, Jay.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Rodney. My name is Jay Chang. I'm the Public Policy Director for the San Francisco Chamber of Commerce. Thank you so much for joining us for part 2 of our stimulus package webinars. The stimulus package is so large that we had to break it up into 3 different webinars. And so you're going to get a deep dive into each part of the stimulus package. Today, we are very, very excited and honored to have with us Justin from the office of Senator Dianne Feinstein. How are you doing, Justin?
It's a little surreal, but I'm doing okay.
Great.
I think like everybody, right?
Yeah, just like everybody. Do you want to talk to us about what you do at the office of Senator Dianne Feinstein?
So I'm a legislative assistant and an economic policy advisor. So that is anywhere from financial services, tax issues, trade, labor, workforce development, small business, things like that. And do that for the senator.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. And how long have you been with the senator?
I've been with her since last May. I did a couple other tours of duty in Senate offices before that, some work at a think tank, and I was actually a small business owner in my past for about 10 years. So I have that experience as well, which hopefully lends something to what we're working on today.
That's great. So you're part of the family. You're part of the small business family.
Yes.
Fantastic. Yeah. And then as part of your portfolio, I understand, right? You can correct me if I'm wrong. Part of your portfolio, the COVID-19 stimulus package was a big part of your work, or you spent a long time working and helping shape this policy. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was a busy couple of weeks, of course, and a lot of economic stimulus and ways to address the economy in that package, a lot of investments in healthcare. So a lot of people in our office and other offices were putting in some work on that package.
Okay, fantastic. And so I think that it'd be helpful to start at the macro level, really the big picture. Can you tell us how your office, in your work, you imagine this package as boosting or pushing forward the U.S. economy during this time?
So this is an unprecedented economic downturn. Your members know this already. It's a demand shock, right? You have large parts of the economy, businesses forced to shut down, lots of people that are required or strongly asked to stay at home. And so that is drastically reducing demand for services. You have a lot of businesses who, if they don't get assistance, will be in trouble. And that's through no issue of their own. It's nothing they did wrong. So it only makes sense for somebody to step in to try to stabilize the economy. And the federal government is really the only entity with the resources that can do that. So I think you see a number of major provisions in the package. One that I know we're going to talk a lot about here is more than $350 billion in aid to small businesses that was included in the package. It's geared largely towards helping keep staff on payroll and covering the main operating expenses that small businesses have. That went into effect, the program started last Friday. You have an aggressive expansion of unemployment benefits to cover income for most workers who get laid off, create some stimulus, make sure that people have enough coverage in what their wages would have been to still keep spending and keep the economy alive to some degree, and make sure that those people are not forced to work. If low-income people do not have that kind of income, they'll feel like they have to go to work, and that represents a public health issue. It also opens up, it's something that's really unprecedented here, is opening up unemployment benefits to self-employed gig workers, part-time people who normally would not be open for those benefits. So I think that really helps the coverage to the economy. You have another provision that includes direct payments to most American adults, $1,200 per adult, up to a certain level of income, $500 per child to the parents, for children under 16. That helps with keeping the economy moving as well. You have $500 billion to hard-hit industries, one of which was the airlines. There are going to be other industries that are certainly going to need help. So the Treasury and the Federal Reserve right now are working out how that money is going to be distributed. but it's going to be a significant investment in industries that are getting really hit hard by this crisis. And then you have a number of other provisions, some of which we'll talk about, like an employee retention tax credit, and some other tax provisions that businesses will be able to take care of. So I think you put all those together, there's a lot of different ways to try to attack the economic problems here.
So, I mean, I've just heard this described almost like a grab bag of economic policy, right? I mean, there's something in here for everyone. There's something in here for individuals and small businesses and larger businesses, right? Across the board. Could you identify maybe one or two provisions that you think will have the largest impact on the economy?
I think the biggest impact is going to be the combination of the unemployment benefits and the small business aid. That's where the cornerstone of the economy largely is. And it's a good combination to get small businesses the liquidity they need to maintain some stability, keep people on payroll, as we said, and for those who they can't keep on payroll, to give those people financial stability to keep paying their bills and also keep spending for the things that they need. So I think you put those two together, that's going to be a powerful incentive. And we're going to start to see how those work here in the coming weeks.
And I want to follow a little bit of a tangent. You mentioned that, for first time, I believe, unemployment insurance is applicable to gig economy workers and kind of part-time workers, this kind of new independent contractors. Can you talk a little bit about the decision there? Is that because there's an evolving economy and we're trying to respond to that? That seems unprecedented. Is that
That's
correct?
right. And I'm not sure if it's never been done before, but I know it's not typical and something we had to extend here. The unemployment benefits, a lot of things were done to those. First of all, in California, you have it so that people earn anywhere from $40 to $450 per week, depending on how much they earned before becoming unemployed. So you still get that. Those benefits were extended by an additional 13 weeks for beyond the 26 that California already provides. And then on top of the $40 to $450, there's an extra $600 that goes to basically anybody who's laid off or has been affected by the coronavirus. And so that gets you up to $1,050 per week, which is enough to cover 100% of the typical income of the average worker. So, and that's where you get into the $600 extra going to gig workers, contract workers. And you're right, it's because the economy has changed. There are a lot more of the people in that situation than there were before. And you want to make sure you cover as much ground as you can. And there had to be, I think, a special provision to make sure we accounted for that.
Thank you for that. I mean, I think that's important that, we don't often see government responding quickly enough to an evolving economy and new forms of work. And so I think that was really kind of unprecedented and positive to see. At the Chamber of Commerce, we have dozens of companies who have reached out to us, small businesses who've reached out to us asking about the SBA loans, PPP, ELID, or I don't think I said that last one right.
We hear EIDL loans sometimes, but I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I think that we're in a situation where not all of us really understand what these acronyms mean, how we're supposed to apply for them.
Right.
Not everyone has an SBA loan or has got a secured SBA loan. Can you talk us through that? What is available for small businesses in this package? How do people apply for them? What impacts will they have?
Of course. And so the biggest pool of money is the $350 billion for what's called the Paycheck Protection Program. So this is a special category of 7A loans. People who have worked at the SBA know that's the main loan product that the SBA does. And what it does is it takes you can get up to 250% of your average monthly payroll expenses, up to a total of $10 million. You don't include compensation to people above $100,000 per year, but everything else is included in that. You can take out a loan for that amount. It's 100% guaranteed by the SBA as opposed to the usual 75 to 85%. So that makes it favorable for banks to want to lend out. And it's 100% forgivable if you retain your employees who are on staff before you got the loan for 8 weeks, and 75% or more of the loan is spent on payroll costs. The other 25% can be spent on rent, utilities, or to pay interest on debt that you incurred prior to February 15th. So the whole idea of this is we're going to give liquidity to small businesses to make sure they can stay afloat for an additional 2 months and make sure that they keep their payroll on staff. Because I know for a lot of small businesses, if you have to let people go, it's very hard to get people back. Hiring is a slow process. They may not be available anymore. So the idea is to keep some stability here. A lot of, if you want to interject, go ahead, but I have a couple other details. What do you want me to get to first?
No, go. I mean, I think that just on this point itself, from a policy standpoint, I've heard this described as almost like direct employment stimulus, or almost like a second tier of unemployment insurance, which maybe isn't as accurate. But with over 6 million people applying for unemployment insurance, this seems like a critical tool to, one, not overload our unemployment system, and two, as a form of direct employment stimulus. Would you say that's correct?
That's exactly right, and that's why I said to the answer to your last question, I think this combined with the unemployment insurance is probably going to be the most powerful piece, bang for the buck, that you get in this bill.
Yeah,
we'll see how it proves out. But
go ahead. Yeah.
So for businesses that are looking to get this, a few more details that they might want to be aware of. As I mentioned, it's 100% forgivable as long as you meet the criteria of what you spend it on. If there's any left over, the interest rate is 1%, so it's very low, and that would be payable within 2 years. There's no personal guarantee or collateral required for the loan. All you have to do is prove what your average monthly payroll expenses were before this. You can get it through any 7A lender who has it currently, as long as they've chosen to participate in the program. So there are a lot of banks that already do that. Sole proprietors cannot apply for this yet. It was open to other small businesses last Friday. Sole proprietors can start applying this coming Friday the 10th. So that should be aware of. Nonprofits are included. They can apply for this as long as there are fewer than 500 employees. It's only 501c3s and 501c19 veteran organizations, though.
Yeah.
So it's extended to them. There are a few industry classifications that can go above 500 employees. You'd have to check with SBA on this, but for one I know about is newspapers. The SBA classifies them, I think, up to 1,000 employees as qualifying. So if you're in one of those industries, you may qualify above 500, you'd want to check. You cannot qualify for this and the employee retention tax credit that we'll talk about later at the same time. It's one or the other. This is this is the better one if you can get it. But just so you be aware of that. A couple more things. You do not have to pay income tax on the forgiven amount of the loan, where you typically would. So that's tax-free. You don't need a lot of documentation to get the loan, as I said, but if you do get one, you need to keep careful documentation to get the loan forgiveness. So make sure you really document who you paid payrolls, expenses to, rent payments you made, that sort of thing. Make sure you get that. And finally, it was a program rolled out very quickly. From passage till late last week. There have been a few hiccups along the way, and we've heard some constituents about that. But by and large, people are getting the money that they're applying for, and they're getting it fairly quickly. And I expect over the next few days that that they'll iron out any of the difficulties in that, and that's what we'll be watching for.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is something we've heard, right? And to put in perspective, this is something that's hundreds of billions of dollars in a program that was put together in the span of 5 days, right? And so in that initial launch, of course, we want everything to go as well as possible, but there is a lot to kind of coordinate very quickly.
That's right, and if you're having problems, we want to hear about it, so let us know.
Okay.
We'll see what we can do.
Let's talk about the other one. I think we called it EIDL loan. And I don't remember the acronym exactly, and that's on me, really. But maybe you might remember, so maybe you can walk us through.
But Jay, that's what I'm here for. You don't need to remember everything.
Thanks.
They're economic injury disaster loans, and some small businesses out there are already going to know about these because it's based on a similar program for wildfire and other disasters. It's a build-on to that existing program. So $10 billion was put aside for this. And what it is loans of up to $2 million at 3.75% interest. And the best thing about it is you can request an emergency advance of $10,000 that does not have to be repaid, even if you don't get approved for the loan. So you might as well try for that, right? And if they do provide that, the SBA is required to provide you that $10,000 or up to $10,000 within 3 days. No personal guarantee is required if your loan is up to $200,000. Collateral would be necessary for loans above $25,000. For this, you would not go to a lender, you go straight to the SBA. I haven't filled one out, but my understanding is that the application is probably 10 minutes to fill out.
So this really is, I don't want to call it necessarily emergency funding, but this is a situation where you can deliver cash on hand very quickly, right?
That's right. And it's intended for if you've been hit with a disaster like the pandemic is, that you've suffered injury as a result of it. If you can show that, you qualify for these types of loans as well.
Absolutely. And I imagine so many businesses in San Francisco can at least demonstrate that, even if they haven't been hit directly, the shelter in place has at the very least hurt their business.
That's right. And it's less funding than the Paycheck Protection Program, but it's another good source of money to look into. And so again, check with the SBA on that. Should I get into a couple other quick things here?
Yeah, let's get it. I know you mentioned the retention tax credit. I think that's something that people haven't really heard as much about. Hasn't gotten as much attention. Can you talk to us about a couple of those other things that you think people should flag?
Of course, yes. So as I mentioned, the employee retention tax credit is another way that the bill was intended to try to keep people on payroll. This is for people who do not qualify for the Paycheck Protection Program or don't get it for whatever reason. This would be a 50% refundable tax credit for wages up to $10,000 per employee. So you could get up to $5,000 per employee based on that. To qualify, you have to either have been shut down due to an order to stay in place or by a government, or to have seen a major drop in receipts that you can demonstrate due to the virus. The only difference is businesses with more than 100 employees can only get credit for wages to employees who are no longer providing active service. So if you're keeping on payroll, but they can't actually deliver services to your customers, those qualify. If you have 100 or fewer employees, you get the credit for all your employees as long as they're still getting paid. So that's a nice backup as well that you can qualify for. And I think something that could be useful to a lot of businesses is you can defer payroll taxes for this year, just the employee side of that. So up to the end of the year, you can defer those, and then half of that amount will be due at the end of next year of 2021, and half will be due at the end of 2022. Couple other quick things for some restaurants, for hotels and some others, the qualified improvement property fix that a lot of businesses have been hoping for since 2017. This makes it so that when you do commercial leasehold improvements, it reverts back to the old 15-year depreciation schedule rather than the 39-year. So that'll help with remodeling efforts. There's a loss carryover provision. So net operating losses from 2018 and 2019 can now be carried back to each of the 5 tax years before the tax loss was incurred. So that's going to save some businesses a fair amount of money, I think. The corporate alternative minimum tax was repealed. And you have an increase for some businesses to be useful, increase the limit on corporate charitable deductions from 10% to 25% for this year only. And the final one, again, a small one, but it could be useful, something that Senator Feinstein has co-sponsored before. Employers are now able to contribute up to $5,250 to their employees' student loans and exclude it from employee income for this year. So if you're thinking about doing that, that might be another savings.
That's amazing. So there's a lot here. I think there's a lot here to kind of go through, right? That companies can reach, small business owners can reach out and tap as resources. I know we have a bunch of links on our website, sfchamber.com, for small business to look at for resources and to find this whole list. Is there any place that you recommend that you like to look at to get the full list, or you're directing constituents to?
Well, I think those are just right. We do have a page on Senator Feinstein's site. You can just go to feinstein.senate.gov. There's a red banner right on the top that you can click on, or you can go to feinstein.senate.gov/coronavirus. And we have all sorts of links and press releases with links in those to a lot of the things that people will want to be using. And that's for individuals as well as businesses.
Absolutely, absolutely. Justin, I wanted to ask you, there's a lot of rumors. I don't know if they're rumors. There's a lot of talk in the media and among business owners and different people that there's going to be a 4th stimulus package or phase 4 of stimulus package. I'm going to be honest that, I don't know if any of us really know what we're talking about because none of us are actually in DC. You're actually in DC. You have this role. Can you tell us, is there really a reason to believe that there's going to be a phase 4 stimulus package, and what does the senator and yourself look for in that kind of effort?
Well, there will be additional response legislation because this is something that's not going to be going away in just a couple of weeks. It's still too early to confidently predict what might be in it. So what I can tell you is based on news reports that I've been seeing and maybe following more closely than other people, but it's not necessarily based on my own insider information. But what we have is a fast-moving and fluid situation, and the vast majority of what was in this $2.2 trillion last stimulus package hasn't even gone out the door yet. So I think there'll be some move to want to wait to see how it works. For instance, on the $350 billion in Paycheck Protection Program, how fast is that going out the door? How many businesses are applying for it? I think those are the kinds of things we want to look at. So Congress will be thinking about a few things, and three off the top of my head would be what's working well. And that's what we're going to see over the next couple of weeks. Where is the money having the greatest effect? Where is it not? And those would be opportunities to augment perhaps in future legislation. Second is, how can we improve? There has never been a law in history, especially a big one that's put together very quickly, that doesn't have flaws in it. There's just no way that you can anticipate the unintended consequences. So we know that there are going to need to be things that will need to be improved upon. The experience of how this works will tell us that as well, and figure out things and fill in gaps that we may have missed. And then finally, what's changed? As I mentioned, this is a fluid situation, and our assessments of what's happening in this unprecedented scenario are changing every day. So by the time we get to this, the facts on the ground will be different, and we'll know more about what we need to do to adjust. Speaker Pelosi, I know, said on Friday that she would like a bill later this month that augments what was in the third package. I don't know if that's will be what's in it, but that's the latest that I've seen. And I know that the relevant committees in Congress are working on, we've gotten a lot of ideas from all sorts of companies and individuals, many in California that we're keeping track of.
That's great, that's great. Justin, I want to end by thanking you and the Senator for all your work. You know, I think from the private sector, it's very rare to see government respond so quickly and so decisively to a crisis. Obviously, it is a crisis. So we appreciate your advocacy. We appreciate your work and legislative forward movement on this, and your leadership and the leadership of the Senator. Is there anything else you want to leave us with, or anything else you want to share with the community?
Well, we appreciate so much what the businesses are doing and the tough time that so many are going through. This is something that, as I said at the beginning, most of the businesses involved here would be perfectly healthy if not for this crisis situation that is not their fault. So we greatly appreciate the difficulty that they're going through, and we're going to try to help wherever we can. If you're running into problems with these programs, let us know, and we'll see if we can help. That's great.
That's great. Well, I want to thank Justin for coming and appearing on our webinar. Thank you, Justin. Give us a high five to DiFi when you have a chance.
Will do.
I made that up just for this webinar.
That's impressive. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. We're very proud over at the Chamber.
Thanks for all you're doing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And for everyone who's watching, thank you so much for joining this webinar. This is going to be part of a series that we're going to continue doing throughout the COVID-19 pandemic about how to help businesses through this period of time. I hope everyone is staying safe and healthy, and we'll catch you on the next one.